You're going to sneeze? Oh. You can't sneeze now.
No.
Hello, welcome to Solstice Talk. You're not going to say anything? No? Paul's got the cold now. Yes, it's almost finished with me apart from the scab on the end of my nose.
It's attractive.
Which is very attractive.
Is that your Christmas gift to
I
me?
won't be able to go out in public now.
You don't go out in public anyway.
No. So, happy solstice, and pardon me. The reason for this video is to talk about the solstice, the winter solstice.
You're going to inform us.
Well, pardon me, I kind of feel that the solstice, the winter solstice in particular, kind of gets neglected. And
do you?
Yes, I do, because it kind of slightly concerns me that the focus is on Christmas and not really the solstice.
Yeah, which is the important day.
Yeah, so I've lit my solstice candles here. What?
I thought we lit them in July. Were
I
they
lit them
the June summer solstice candles?
No. Well, I certainly wouldn't have put them on in June in the middle of the heat wave.
Oh, you like candles though?
I do like candles, but not in the middle of the heat wave, but I thought they could signify aspects of the solstice. Peace, harmony, happiness, light, and...
Feasting.
Chocolate.
Feasting.
Chocolate.
Feasting is better.
Feasting.
Because that's what it was about, wasn't it?
I think, look, let's talk about the solstice, because I think it's important. Now, we're not scientists. I'm certainly not a mathematician. I'm not an astronomer. But I have...
astrology.
But I'm quite creative, and I think my creativity enables me to visualise things quite well. And, well, it does. If you're going to sit and mock, you can go and bake some bread.
I've done that.
Yes, I can smell. It's very pleasant.
I didn't have any yeast though.
What?
Didn't have any
How
yeast.
did you make bread then?
I made a sort of soda bread.
Oh, a soda bread. Okay, that's fine. I hope it doesn't taste of bicarbonate of soda.
No.
Good. But I wanted to talk about the solstice because I think some people don't fully understand why it's important and also why it occurs as well. You know, why do we have the seasons? And I wanted to explain that. Obviously, there are loads of videos that you can look at on YouTube that explain all of that for you. But very, very basically, it's all because the Earth axis is at an angle.
A tilt.
Yeah, it's tilted. So if you imagine that my hand is the Earth, and that's the sort of axis, it's tilted. So that's the North Pole and that's the South Pole underneath there. But it's tilted like that as we travel around the sun. Yeah?
The sun's in the middle here.
So the sun's in the middle, and as we travel around, during the summer, our summer, the Northern Hemisphere...
UK summer. Northern Hemisphere
the
summer.
Northern Hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. It's nearer to the sun. Yeah? So in our winter, we're tilted away from the sun. Yeah? So that's why we have the longest day and the shortest day.
Yeah.
If you want more information, look it up on YouTube. But I wanted to talk about it because obviously with the seasons becoming colder and darker at this time of year, that must have had an impact on people.
Yeah,
And
a huge impact.
A huge impact. I mean, if we think about the growing seasons and how it's linked in with that.
Well, yeah. I mean, totally. I mean, there are people who do grow by the phases of the moon. And that is exactly really what used to happen years ago.
Well, I think also it happened in conjunction with the phases of the sun as well.
Yeah.
With the height of the sun in the sky. Because obviously the ancient people weren't stupid. They observed and saw what happened, but didn't probably fully understand, because I think in those days people thought that the sun went around the earth, as you would automatically assume.
Yeah.
And then as it starts to get darker and darker, I think, all sorts of stories would have been told and made up around the reasons why this was happening. And I guess people would have been very hopeful that the sun would return again. And this time of year is that point where the sun begins to climb higher in the sky from today onwards. But I wanted to raise a point, and I don't want to offend anybody who is religious or, has certain beliefs, but I wanted to raise the point that I find is really interesting. Like I say, generally people don't talk about the solstice. I mean, you don't hear Radio 4 saying, "Good morning, it's the winter solstice, happy solstice." You don't hear
in
any
the summer. Yeah.
Yeah, but they
not
talk about
winter.
it in weather terms.
Well, they talk about it in Stonehenge terms. That's what they talk
That's
about.
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And winter as well. They celebrate the winter solstice at
No, I know.
Stonehenge too.
I'm talking about the media talk about solstice.
But that's
in terms
it.
Of Stonehenge.
It's
in
not
the UK.
celebrated. And I find the really interesting thing is that we have the shortest day at the winter solstice. And then the sun rises, obviously, but it takes 3 days. 3 days.
3 rotations.
3 days to notice the difference. So the sun appears to be reborn on Christmas Day. Think about that.
On the 3rd day,
The 3rd day,
the sun is reborn.
the sun is reborn.
Mm.
I find that really interesting, because it's only then when you get the connection with that festival of Christmas and why it has been placed in that position.
Where it is.
Yeah. So you also get a sense of the festival of Easter being extremely similar and kind of allied to the solstice in a way, because they're both festivals celebrating some form of birth, transformation, rebirth. And also I think it's interesting that we call Jesus the Son of God.
As in sun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then on the 3rd day after the solstice, the sun appears to start rising again.
Yeah.
And getting higher. So I just wanted to talk about that because I find that really fascinating. Don't you?
Well, it is. I mean, we won't get into religion because everyone has their own viewpoints and things, but I think I remember reading, getting into religion, I remember reading the Bible when I was 10 and 11.
You need to speak up a little bit, Paul.
I remember reading the Bible when I was 10 and 11 and found it all very confusing, really. But the one thing that I didn't really understand is in the story, of course, Jesus dies on Good Friday and gets reborn on Easter Sunday, and that's 3 days, but that's not really
It's
3
not
days.
3 days.
It's 2 days. And it was only recently when we started talking about things that I spoke to a cleric who sort of said, well, you have to parallel that with other things that are going on, because a lot of religions take things from other religions and festivals, and
It's all borrowed.
It's all borrowed.
I mean, the Christians essentially have borrowed the solstice, the Christmas festival, from the solstice, from the pagans, really. And I mean, there are scholars that, you know, recognise that Jesus wasn't born at this time of year.
Yeah. Isn't it sort of mid-January or something?
Well,
it's supposed to be?
there's all sorts of theories, aren't there? So
I think it was September the 22nd.
It might have been my birthday.
It could have been your birthday.
It could be the Messiah.
I don't think so.
No? Oh,
No,
okay,
I
then.
don't think so.
Well, you never know.
But I think Yule, sort of
Yule,
going back
yes.
to winter solstice, Yule, which we have in the UK,
Yule log.
Yule log and, you know, Yule fire and all of that, that actually is, that's Germanic and Scandinavian, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we in the UK, much of our celebrations in the UK have been borrowed from
Other cultures.
Germanic and Scandinavian cultures in particular. And things are different in France. So in France,
And Germany.
they open presents on
Christmas
Eve. So our friends who are French, they open their presents on Christmas Eve. So there's an awful lot of borrowing that goes on at this time. But Yule is, am I right? Yeah, I am right. Yule is J-U-L, really.
Yes.
And I'm sure that was another name for Odin. I'm absolutely sure that was another name for Odin.
I don't know, I'm not too sure. I'm
No,
sure
I'm
somebody
sure it
will
was.
correct us. But we're not
No, I
experts
think they'll
in that
confirm
field.
that it was, because I'm sure it's another name for Odin, which in itself is really interesting around this time of year.
It's
And
also
of course
Woden as well. Woden was
absolutely.
Odin.
Yeah.
That's where we
So
get
there's
Wednesday.
so many names that borrow and take from other cultures and other beliefs and other sort of philosophies of life. And of course, going back to the winter solstice in the UK, we have a lot of feasting at this time, and the reason we have feasting at this time is traditionally, and I'm sort of going back really before religion, or organised religion, let's say, a lot of animals would be slaughtered around this time, because there was, when it was cold, the meat could be stored. And also, you would store that meat very often just in sort of on the ground and in sort of cold stores on the side of a house, so when it was cold, because you couldn't feed those animals going through January, February and March. So many animals were slaughtered at this time and were feasted upon, because the important thing was for humans to live through the dark months, the hungry gap of January, February and March before new food came along. And you very often didn't have enough food, grazing food and grass and stored edibles to feed all of your animals. So you would keep, maybe even a village would keep a small number of animals for breeding in the new season, and they would make sure there was enough food for them to have. But many of the other animals, it was time for them to go.
I'm glad we're vegetarian.
Well, yeah, but it's interesting looking back on those things.
But of course, before animals were eaten for food, because they wouldn't have always been eaten for food.
That was quite early on, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of the traditions and the things that happen, the beliefs that we have, are so deep-rooted and go back so far to a time where we couldn't explain much, or we didn't understand much because we were so primitive, that you had to live within the pure cycle of nature. And, you know, before man, I guess, would have become hunter-gatherers, they would have been foraging, wouldn't they, for food
Well,
as primitive animals, just like primitive. Sorry, not primitive, but just as primates forage for food. I mean, not all primates eat meat.
No.
I mean, I know some of them kill each other, but I guess until they discovered how to cook food, to use fire, things like that,
Yeah, you're not talking. Yeah, you're talking about humans.
Humans, yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, primates. Yeah.
Primates are slowly using tools, aren't they?
Yeah.
They've shown this, haven't they?
There's a
They're evolving.
cutting tool and banging.
They're
as well.
evolving.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. But I think thinking about a time when, as people, we would have known very little in terms of science or been able to explain things. Imagine the stories you would have come up with, I guess when language was primitive, or when people were making marks and primitive art. Think of how you would have had to explain to the others that, there's the sun's coming out, that there was no food or nothing to eat. It's just a case of pure survival.
And in many ways, that's why
It would have been frightening to have seen the sun getting lower and lower and lower.
Yeah, and days
And
getting
the
shorter.
crops and the crops or the food sources
Waning.
dying, the trees dying. It would have been a time of death, destruction, of fear, anxiety, all of those things. And those things weave a tangled web of mystery and, requiring some form of explanation. I think that's fascinating to think.
But that's why you also
Aren't
have
we lucky?
feasting, because feasting brings joy and hope.
But I was thinking
and
sort of
community.
before that.
No, I know, but I think there always was. I mean, when you go back, well, not always, obviously, but you go back to the Dark Ages and the early hundreds AD, there was still sort of feasting going. I mean, you go back to Roman and Greek times.
Yeah, but there was a sort of a form of technology and an understanding of science to a certain degree there.
By that time,
I'm
yeah.
kind of going further back than that.
I can't remember those days.
Oh, Paul, don't spoil it. I'm in a reverie of imagining being a primitive person. We all have that primitive brain within us still,
Oh,
don't
yeah.
we? Maybe there is some form of memory locked inside of us. I don't know. It's like when you hear thunder and lightning. I don't know about you, but there's a feeling inside that is a basic fear of that. Even though I'm not
But
I'm not fearful of it, but
an exciting fear at the same time.
yeah, and it's hard to, I guess, divide all those emotions up and identify each one. But there's like a primeval fear, like the fear of fire, or I don't know. It's elemental. It's primeval. I don't know. Maybe I'm just waffling on. But let us know what you think. Let us know your thoughts around the solstice or this time of year, what it means to you.
We know that some of you are celebrating.
Yeah, we know that some of you are religious, and, that's absolutely fine. We don't mind that at all. We're not judging that. But we're just sort of saying, look at the origins of this in terms of human belief, not something that is maybe supernatural. We're looking at the earthy elemental beliefs that come from nature, from the cycle of nature, from the things that can be observed around us without having to come up with some kind of
reasoning
or otherworldly explanation.
Yeah, firmament of it. Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go. We just thought we'd raise those discussion points for fun.
And of course, on on the other side of the planet, our Antipodean friends, of course, today is their summer solstice.
Yeah. Is
So
it today? Is it exactly the same?
yeah,
Yeah.
because of the tilt of the Earth.
Yeah.
It's our winter
Amazing,
solstice.
isn't it?
It's their summer solstice. So they will be looking at their sort of onions and their garlic and that type of thing will be being harvested, in the weeks and months to come, just like we were doing it 6 months ago. It's fascinating that, when I think it's sometimes confusing when you're watching, when you're looking at Facebook and you see somebody picking tomatoes and you think, gosh, they're picking their first tomatoes in December, and then you realise that actually they're in New Zealand or something, so that's why they're picking their first tomatoes.
And of course you've got the other markers, haven't you, that have been recognised in the year. I mean, things like the equinox as well, the equal day and night lengths.
So that falls
March.
directly between the winter solstice and the summer solstice, and the summer solstice and the winter solstice.
So you've got the autumn equinox and the spring equinox. And of course you've got all the festivals that have been created by man to celebrate certain points in the year. And also with the lunar cycles, you've got all the man-made names for the different moons. Harvest moon.
Oh yeah, I see what
blood
you mean.
moon.
Yeah, spring moons.
There's all sorts of different names, aren't there? So, we've kind of imposed our ideas and our explanations onto these events that are naturally occurring and have been naturally occurring for millions of years.
Yeah.
So I just find it fascinating how man names everything and explains everything that he can. It's amazing, isn't it?
Well, I think that is in our nature.
Well,
it
of
is
course,
to
this is the
explain.
world we live in, everything has a name. But isn't it interesting how what I'm trying to sort of link it in with is how there are factual things, and then there are also the fantastical explanations as well, that, sort of cross into this supernatural realm, if you like, where attributes are given to these events and are still celebrated now. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that's the way it is. And these supernatural stories are given to these events as well, to explain them. Now, I can understand believing in that in a simpler time, but I can't quite understand believing in that in the times that we live in now.
Well, people believe in what they want to believe in.
I'm just giving my opinion
No,
here.
I know you are.
And don't get me wrong now. I love all of those stories, and I even love, as a child, I used to love reading the Bible stories, especially the ones with lots of pictures. But you had the sort of big Bible story books that told the story with pictures and
Well, that was the
lovely colour things.
Old Testament, wasn't it? Most of those.
Well,
things
all those stories, Moses, Joseph, and
so
all of those
things. And then you get into
and
money
Jesus.
changers and things like that
Money
in the temples.
changers.
Money changers in the temples, with Jesus overthrowing the tables
Were
of
they
the
money
changers.
lenders?
No, they changed goods from one to the other. It was sort of effectively it was a financial barter system, which is what money is. It's a financial barter system.
Yeah. Well, yeah, all of those stories. I love all of that.
You just reminded me of gosh.
What?
I had I was given a Bible earlier on.
Yes.
And I've just suddenly lots of pictures from it are coming into my head.
Well, it wasn't a Bible then. It had pictures in it.
No, but it was a sort of it was
a storybook of Bible stories. Wasn't a Bible.
No, it wasn't a Bible.
We do have a Bible. We've got a very, very old Bible from 1895, I think, which I was given, which is lovely.
Anyway.
But of course, yeah, I mean, it's all connected. All of these things are kind of connected. The cycle of nature, religion, the supernatural,
Belief systems,
it's all connected with the cycle of nature and can all be traced back to those cycles. And survival and struggle and conflict. I think it's a really interesting area to talk about, and we hope you've enjoyed this little discussion on today, the winter solstice, 21st of December, Friday 21st of December 2018, and I do believe that the solstice is this evening, isn't it?
yeah, I think it's at 10 something. Yeah, because
also-
it is actually a
Point.
a point in time.
Yes.
It's not a day.
No.
We well, if we celebrate it as a day, but it is actually a point in time.
Yeah, and also I think it coincides with a full moon. I think there's a
Does
full
it?
moon.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
I think-
That's quite exciting.
I'm not too sure, you might correct me on that. I don't have a device to hand to check.
I think in Roman times that was really special because
Well, it probably is.
Roman, I think it was Sol Invictus was the Roman god for this time of year, which was Iranian or Syrian originally. I think I can't remember which it was, but that a full moon on Sol Invictus Day was really quite special.
I hope you're talking facts there, Paul.
Yeah, I am.
And not a load of
I
old
am.
rubbish.
Well, unless my classics teacher, I was drawing back from that. So my classics teacher, who was great, fantastic classics teacher. We did right from Greek to Roman times. So that was my favourite
Well, I
subject.
hope you're right.
Sol Invictus.
Because
yeah.
people can Google these days. You can't just get away with saying any old
tell
rubbish.
me whether I'm right. Tell me whether I'm right. And if you're Roman, from the turn of the sort of millennia of tell me whether I'm right.
If we've got a time-travelling Roman watching, then please do correct Paul.
I'm gonna have to look it up after this.
Anyway.
And
so,
the 12 Days of Christmas. That's Scandinavian and Germanic as
Is
well.
it?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I think we count the 12 days from Christmas Day onwards, but I think it's from now. It's the build up to now. I'm
Is
not
it?
sure.
What
Yeah.
about Advent?
I don't know about Advent.
No, exactly. You don't know about those subjects, so don't talk about them if you don't know
No, but
about them.
Advent. There's a reason I don't know about Advent. I didn't study Advent. Studied other things.
So, whatever you're doing on this windy, wild solstice day with changeable weather and clouds scudding across the sky, the sun peeping through occasionally, the branches flying in the wintry wind.
Is that the wind? You've been very, very
Well-
vocal with your hands today. Have you noticed?
Whatever you're doing.
It's blue sky now. That's lovely.
Whatever you're doing today on this solstice, we hope you enjoy it. We're going to have a chocolate biscuit shortly. That's our celebration. We're going to, yes, and as an offering to the gods of the solstice
To Yule.
and whoever else.
Are you going to have one that needs to be unwrapped?
No, I want one of those really thick chocolate ones.
Right.
Oh, that's Alexa telling me our time is up. We must stop
We've
now.
got to go. Alexa, stop.
There we are. So, thank you very much for watching. Happy solstice, and look out for the the festive special that will shortly be arriving on YouTube.
Bye.
Bye for now. Bye. Happy solstice. Come again. Bye. Thank you for watching.